Hi, everybody. It's time for what I'm working on Wednesday at Chorus Girl Quilting. And the word of the day is cutting, 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 and more cutting. Like I said last week, my I call her my big Janome, is in the shop having her spa month. And so I've been working on some smaller projects, or not necessarily smaller, but other projects that I showed you last week on Wednesday. And so we've been doing lots of cutting because there's not a way to do lots of sewing. I've done the Bernina. I'm done with the Bernina for now, the little Bernina. But what we've done today is um, I'm going to start with this one, the Jolly Bar Jumble, um, which is it's just the little 4 patches and 4-inch squares, lots of squares. This again, easy. It'll be an easy palette cleanser for my brain, and it has 160 background squares, large ones, 160 small ones, 160 prints that are 2.5 inches, and then these 4.5-inch squares of our prints as well. And they're so pretty, I can't pick a favorite. But I guess, well, I've gone on and on about this little cottage piece, so it's probably my favorite. But I was able to do a little bit of fussy cutting with some of these to center up my little cottages. And a couple of these prints are really large scales. So I tried to focus on areas that had more color in them or more variety, so it didn't just look like a big blob. So did the same with the dark colorway of this fabric. This comes, I think these are the 3 colorways of this print. In these bundles, you usually get, in this bundle, there were 33 pieces of fabric, but you will have the same prints multiple times, just in different colorways. But none of the prints were repeated in the same color. So I think this is going to be really pretty. It's going to go quickly. I may take this with me on the road, not sure yet. So that's the Jolly Bar Jumble. Again, you can find that on the Fat Quarter Shop, and I can link it. I think I linked it last week, but I can link it again. The next one up is one of the little baby quilts I talked about last week for my mom's oncology team, because we think all of the providers that she sees may be on maternity or paternity leave. But this one is the Cattle Call, and I just started cutting this flannel a little bit ago for the little girl baby. So this is the background. I thought I would start with that first because it's a little more straightforward, easier to kind of organize. This does have a ton of cutting and a ton of pieces they differ in size maybe by 1/4 inch. So that I have diagrammed that out. Since I've made this quilt multiple times, I kind of made myself a cutting order, and that helps me a lot too. And I label each piece as I cut it. Each piece has a letter name, and so I use a Sharpie, but it's not bleeding through, so that's okay. And then my cow colors are over here, also flannels. You have to have a light, a medium, and a dark. I'm using this as the light, the medium, and the dark. And this is so cute. The selvage has pigs in it. Isn't that funny? Little pigs. And then, this is another color that'll be on its face. So lots more cutting to do for that. And let's get that out of the way. So then the next thing to talk about is the Something Fishy quilt. And we have a school of fish now. The fish are all finished. They've all been paper pieced. I did an average, just kind of when I started keeping track of time. Each one of these squares on average took 130 minutes. So 2 hours and 10 minutes to do an 8-inch square. So lots of tiny pieces. Um, you I was using pieces that were, smaller than this. I mean, I could even do a little, some of them had pieces that were that big that I was able to sew in. So that's a great way to use up little bitty chunks of fabric. And I'm going to talk about little bitty chunks of fabric a little later again. But here is what these look like when they're all done with the paper on them. And we add to that kind of a frame strip around the edge, and they end up looking like this. And I think this color is pretty prominent in the backing fabric and the border. This will be one of the borders, but this turquoise is pretty prominent in this, and variations of it in that background backing fabric. So I'm doing these in little chunks because once you get these borders on, and I am squaring these up. You follow the lines. I followed these lines to sew these little strips on, and the squares were still coming out a little bit wonky. So I decided to go ahead and square them up. There's not a lot to trim off, but once you get that done, or once I get that done, other people may do this differently. Then you pull off the paper on the back, which takes a long time. Um, you just kind of pull on it and the paper will release from the seam. And I use my stiletto and just kind of to lift them up and rip that out. So I'm just doing them in little chunks, maybe four at a time. Since there's 12, I'll do them like that. And then I take a break and do something else. So then the next thing that happens to these squares is they get some sashing strips, and I'm using this fabric right here as the sashing strips that go in between here. And I think this texture kind of looks like water, the ripples in water. So I was really tried to be really conscious about the directionality of this. It runs horizontally across the fabric. So when I cut my sashing strips, I made sure that the pattern ran horizontally on all the strips. These will go, let me get that out of the way. This will go in between each block. Let's fold that back. And this will go in between each block like so. And then there will be another strip above and below it. And then it will have another inner border of this bright turquoise. Once you get all these rows together, you frame it up again, and then this fishing lure will be the border. So that's going well. Just slow. It's going well, but slowly. And I think my friend is. I sent her a picture of the school of fish, and she was very excited. So that's going well. And then the last thing is I decided to go ahead a few weeks back. Well, it's been about a month ago now. I posted a show and tell of this around the corner quilt in the hunting theme for my nephew. And I like this pattern so much. I kept thinking, I need to do this in another colorway just to see what it would be like. So it just so happened that I had this fabric. I just bought it because, of course, are you surprised? It has peacocks on it. So, like, really, you're probably not surprised. But there were several coordinating fabrics that went with it. They're pretty loud and intense. And then Missouri Star had a sale, and they had this white fabric with gold peacock feathers. So this will be the background of the quilt. This is going to be a pretty loud quilt. And these will be the other, the pieces for the half square triangles. I do need to get a couple of, or one or two more fabrics, I think. I had just enough of this left from the fish quilt to add into it. And so that will be one of my solid colors. I think I'm going to add some purple. I'm not sure, but I think purple would look great, and because these are the background, and this is kind of the lighter color for the half square, all these half square triangles. So I think that will jump out pretty well. So that's that. I don't know what I'm going to name it. I guess I'll still call it around the corner. And so that's that with projects. It feels like a lot of projects. Oh, and then we have the sheep quilt that I showed you last week. The woolly lambs, we'll be working on that as well. But I wanted to get these two, the Jolly Bar and the cow cut out first, and then I'll do the woolly lambs next. So then, talking about little tiny pieces of fabric, I came across, and I am not affiliated or sponsored by or anything like this. This is just a product that you might be interested in. I might tag them and say, hey, I'm putting this on my YouTube channel. But it's called Retold Recycling, and they make these bags for you to fill up with. It started out, I think, as clothing, old clothing that really can't go. It's like not good enough to go to the thrift store, but you hate to throw it in the trash because filling up the landfills. And I come from a family of fabric savers, and you know if it is a little, a 1-inch piece, they save it. And I have done that too, guilty, and actually have used those small pieces. But sometimes you just have a bunch of little cuts that you don't have anything to do with, and you hate to throw them in the trash and fill up a landfill. So they have these bags you can order online, and basically what happens is you're prepaying for the postage to mail these bags to them, and then they dispose of them in multiple different ways. On their website, they talk about on their website how they choose to dispose of them. I know some people use their scrappy cuts to fill dog beds, or donate them to pet shelters, to fill dog beds or whatever. And I made a couple of dog beds with all of those little scrappy cuts, and with the idea that they could go in the washer. And all that happened was that once we got it out of the washer and dried them, all of that fabric just kind of balled up, and it got really hard, and the dogs didn't like it anymore. So that's what I do with these. And I even use like the scraps of my quilting batting when I trim quilts down. If there's just little strips, I just throw them in this trash can over here. And as you can see, it's very full, and I need to fill that bag. And I have 3 or 4. Now, I will say this is kind of pricey, for some budgets. I think it's about $15 a bag, but that's paying for the US Postal Service ground postage. But you fill it up, you peel and stick, and take it to the post office and drop it in the package bin, and off it goes. And if you have like the tracking thing, you'll find out when it gets there. It goes someplace in South Carolina. So that's Retold Recycling. If you're interested and wanting a way to get rid of all of the little kind of, let's call them the little trash cuts. So that's that. We have been working on our Paducah highlight reel. Handyman has been working on it, and I've been looking over his shoulder. That's the truth. And we're hoping to post that this week or this weekend. So keep an eye out for that. We do have another show until Sunday coming up. And hey, people, we are like this close to having 200 subscribers. That makes me really excited. I have appreciated all your comments. You've been very kind, and said there have been some funny things, where commenters are, feeling that about the double knit and bow tie blocks, and haven't somebody commented today they have a 52-year-old Bernina and it's still running and they're never going to get rid of it. Same, mine's not 52, but I'm not getting rid of it. So I really appreciate that. Keep watching, keep liking and subscribing, and we will see you on Sunday for Show and Tell Sunday, and possibly another time this week for the Paducah highlight reel. So we'll talk to you soon. Bye.